So, a very good afternoon to our respected resource person, Dr. Carolyn. She's a faculty from the Department of Management, and she will be taking the last class for today. She will be talking on cross-culture management. As we know that we are becoming more and more cross-culture centric classroom because in every class we have people from different cultures. Though we say that we are from India, but India is a very diverse country. So our students may be of different from different places, having different cultures and traditions. So it's very important to know how to manage those cross cultures students and cross culture people. So ma'am will be talking on that topic. Uh, Especially after using CVET in most of the universities in India, we are going to have students and people from different places as we compare to the previous year. So it's very important. So the topic which ma'am will be dealing with is going to be very important and try to get take the best out of it. Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am, for having you, for accepting our request. So you may proceed with your lecture, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Please give me a second. I will share my screen. I hope my screen is visible to all. So, a very good afternoon to one and all. Myself, Carolyn Vanlalhriati, and today I would like to talk on the topic that is cross-cultural management. As Sarmoya has mentioned that cross-cultural management is very important in today's world because we are not only dealing with one culture, we have to deal with different cultures even in organizations and even in universities and other education institution also we have to deal with different cultures. So that is why cross-cultural management has been an important topic. And in the last 2 decades, cross cultural challenges in international business management have become prominent as the companies have started expanding across the territorial boundaries. So, as we have mentioned, even leading management schools have started incorporating cross cultural challenges as a part of the curriculum in their international business management. So, in order to understand what is a cross cultural management, first of all, let us try to take a look at what is a culture. As we all are aware of what is the definitions of culture, but anyway, let me try to bring out some of the important definitions which has been given by several authors in 1996. The first definition that I would like to bring out is given by Joint and Werner, and according to them, culture is acquired knowledge that people use to interpret experience and they use to generate social behavior. And another important definition is given by Coakley in 2007, which says that culture consists of the ways of life that people create as they participate in a group or society. And another definition that we can find in 1998 is given by J.W. Salekus, and who has defined culture as the socially transmitted behavior, patterns, norms, beliefs, and values of a given community. So we can say that culture is the acquired knowledge that people use to anticipate events and interpret experiences for generating acceptable social and professional behaviors. So this knowledge will form values and it will create attitudes and influences behavior. So from this definition, From this explanation, we can see that from the various definitions that I have pointed out, we can understand that culture has been learned through experiences and it is shared by a large number of people in the society. And we can see that it is transferred from one generation to another generation. So, by understanding what is a culture, let's move on to the important corporate culture. So each and every one of us are belonging to an organizations or institutions. So we all have a different cultures. So when we talk about that cultures, we can see that it is a set of symbols, ceremonies and myths that communicate the underlying values and beliefs of that organization to its employees. And this definition is given by William Mucci. And generally speaking, we can say that corporate culture is the way we do things around here. So we can say that as we are saying that all of us are belonging to a specific organizations, and each and every organizations that we belong, we have a different cultures. So we have a different way of doing things. So that clearly represents what is a corporate culture. And we can say that for example, we have HP. This is a company. They are conscious of their culture. That is also known as the HP way, and they has worked hard to maintain it over the years. So their corporate culture is based on respect for others, a sense of community, and we also have. Plain hard work. And this HP corporate culture is published in Fortune magazine in May 15, 1995. So we can understand what is a corporate culture. Each and every organizations have their own way of doing things, their own way of their own symbols, their own way of ceremonies, their own way of conducting meetings, their own way of doing things. That is generally known as the corporate culture. Then we can say that in general, the elements of the corporate culture include, that is the basic assumptions. So the corporate culture is generally governed by the basic assumptions, which is what an organization is and what it stands for and what it is all about. This will determine what organizational members perceive, the way they think, the way they feel, and the way they behave. And it explains what the core ideology of an organization is. So we can understand that the corporate culture is based on several basic assumptions, which is governing how the members of the corporate perceive, the way they perceive things, the way they think, the way they feel, and the way they behave. So based on this basic assumptions, let us try to bring out some of the important organization culture. So the first one is market oriented communication system. So this is the basic assumptions that we find under 80 and 80. And we have customer orientation for Citibank, and for HP they are having a basic assumptions on risk taking and innovation. And so in Sony and Toyota we have employee participation, open communication, and security. And the last example that I'm going to bring out is given by Asia Brown Burberry, and they are having their culture is based on entrepreneurism, self-discipline, and control. So by reading this, by seeing the basic assumptions of these organizations, we can understand each and every organizations will have a different corporate cultures, because their basic assumptions are different from one another. So we can understand what type of culture will be existed in these organizations that we have mentioned so far. Now, coming to the features of culture, we have several features of culture. Um, the first one that we have is we can say that culture is dynamic, because culture is something which will undergoes a change, and this change might be slow, but it is usually constant. So we can say culture is dynamic. And we can also say that culture is learned, because it is not a hereditary phenomenon, and a person needs to learn it by interacting with one's environment. So we can say that culture is learned. So when we are putting one person in a specific culture, that person will learn about that culture, even though he might belong to a different culture by blood. but as we see that it is from it is acquired through learning, so he can develop a different cultures even though he might be belonging to a different culture through blood. And then we can see that culture is non-uniform. So several cultural constituents like rituals, ideas, moral values, and beliefs, these they differ considerably, and they are different in different sections of the society. And moreover, this cultural constituents, they change with time, so we can see that it is non-uniform. And we can also see that culture is pattern because it is integrated. So a change in one part obviously will bring a change in the other. And we can also see that culture, one important elements of culture is social because it is the outcome of the society. And as we have highlighted in the previous definition, culture is shared. So culture is something which is shared by the members of an organization. And in the last features of culture, we are going to mention about transferability because culture is transmitted from one group to another. It is transferable from one generation to another generation. So that is why culture is transferable. So we can understand that these are the basic features of culture that we can find. And then moving on to the elements of the corporate culture, we have different important elements which are used to describe the the corporate culture. So the first and foremost thing that we're going to mention is the paradigm. So this will denote what is the purpose of an organizations, what is the long-term goals, and what is the vision and value systems that is governing all the plans, all the activities, and all the things that has been done within an organization. This is going to be represented by the paradigm. So this is one important elements of culture. And there will also be a control system because this control system will monitor what is going on within the organization, and it can be different across organization cultures. For example, like when there is a role cultures, there would have a vast rule books, and there would be more reliance on individualism in a power culture. And another important elements of corporate culture is a organizational structure. This is the structural representations of the hierarchical arrangements in an organization, and it will clearly brings out who reports to whom, and it will also explains about the span of control and many other important things. This will include the reporting system, the hierarchies, and the workflows through the business. So it is a structure that is representing, or we can say that is governing the true corporate culture. And then we also have a power structure. So this element deals with who will be the decision maker and how widely spread is power and on what is power based. So who is the main decision maker and how much level of power has been assigned to that person, or is it concentrated only in the top management, or it also deals with the lower levels of management. So this will be clearly represented by the power structure, and this is an important elements of the corporate culture. And we also have symbols. These are organizational logos and designs, and it also extends to symbols of power such as parking spaces and executive washrooms. These are very important because we can understand the rooms that has been allotted to us and the parking space that has been allotted for us. This will clearly brings about, these are the symbolic representations of the cultures. And then we also have rituals and routines, which will be considering about this management meeting, then board reports, and so on. They become more habitual than necessary. The way we do things, the way we conduct meetings, and the way we provide it, the way we write reports, and many other stuff which we do it. These are rituals and routines, which is an important elements of the corporate culture. And we also have stories and myths. So these are data about people and events and convey a message about what is valued within the organization. So this is very important. The stories and myths that is representing the corporate culture of one specific organization. So these are the important elements of corporate culture. And then let us try to understand what are the core components of culture. So the first one is power distribution. So when we talk about power distribution, we basically refers to what kinds of power, how the power has been distributed among the members of the organization, whether the members of the society follow the hierarchical approach or the egalitarian ideology. So under the egalitarian ideology, it focuses on equal treatment for all the members. That means each and every employees have their own power. They are involved in the decision makings and they are having importance. So there is equal treatment for everyone. But under the hierarchical approach, it depends upon the designation the person is having, the designation and the post that he held, that will also brings out clearly about what levels of power has been given. So this is the core components of the culture. And we also have social relationship. Are people more individualistic or they believe in collectivism? So in an individualistic culture, people are focusing on individual development. They wanted to do things alone, they wanted to fight for themselves. And then but in a collectivism, their focus is more on group activities, teamwork, and they wanted to do things together and they would fight together. So we can find this collectivism culture. One good example that we have is the Japanese culture. And we also have environmental relationships, where do people exploit the environment for their socioeconomic purpose, or do they strive to live in harmony with the surroundings? So the environmental relationship a person is having is also one important components of culture. And the next one is work patterns, whether people perform one task at a time or they take up multiple tasks at a time. So when they take up one task at a time, it is usually known as the sequential time. And then when they take up multiple tasks at a time, their work pattern is also known as synchronous. So the way how they do things, the work patterns will also clearly depicts the corporate culture. And we also have uncertainty and social control, whether the members of the society like to avoid uncertainty and be rule bound, or whether the members of the society are more relationship based and like to deal with the uncertainties as and when they arise. So when the uncertainty avoidance index is low, we can say that the people, the managers and employees of the organizations, they are at ease, they feel at home, and they are very much comfortable with the uncertain situations. And we can say they are more entrepreneurial and they are happy to take risks and not very much dependent on formal rules. So when the uncertainty avoidance index score is low, we can see that people are willing to take risks. They are not bothered by the uncertainties, that is the future uncertainties, because they are quite confident in what they are doing and they are ready to face any kind of situation. So that is when uncertainty avoidance index is low. And when the uncertainty avoidance is high, that is just the opposite. People are not at ease to face the uncertain situations. They wanted to be well prepared, and they wanted to be very much aware of the situations that they are facing. So that is uncertainty. And social control. These collectively represents the core components of the culture. Then coming to what are the critical issues that generally surface in cross-cultural teams, we have inadequate trust and perception, inaccurate biases, and false communication. For example, under inadequate trust, for example, one hand, a Chinese manager wonders why his Indian teammates speak in Hindi in the office, and on the other hand, his teammates argue that when the manager is not around, why they can't speak in English. So when there is a different communication that existed, and when we are using a different language that cannot be understandable by another person, so there is a chance for development of this inadequate trust, which is one of the common issues that can be faced by the cross-cultural teams. And then another one is the perception. We all have perception, and the way we perceive things are also different. For example, people from advanced countries consider people from less developed countries inferior, or vice versa. So people from developed countries, they underestimated the people from less developed countries, and they are expected to have inferiority. But not all people from less developed countries have inferiority complex. So this is not true. But so these wrong perception can also have an can also be one of the critical issues that we can face. And another one is inaccurate biases. For example, Japanese people make decisions in the group, or Indians do not deliver on time, are two generalized versions of cultural prejudices. So we can say that this we have this cultural prejudices, but these are very generalized because it will not be applicable to one and all. There are many Japanese people who do not make decisions in group, and there are many Indian peoples who are quite punctual, so we cannot just rely on this generalized sentence versions of cultural prejudices. And we also have false communication. For example, during discussions, Japanese people nod their heads more as a sign of politeness and not necessarily as an agreement to what is being talked about. So when a person note on the on our communication, or on whatever information that we give, it doesn't always represent that they agree to what we are saying. It can also sometimes give a false communication. They just nod their head out of politeness, but in reality, they might not agree to what we are saying. So there can be false communication that can exist between the speaker and the listener. So these are the four different critical issues that we can face in cross-cultural teams. And another one is communication style influenced by the culture of the nation. There are several communication styles. So the first one is direct or indirect. So in the messages are indirect communication, the messages are explicit and straight in the direct style. However, in the indirect style, the messages are more implicit and contextual. Direct style can be seen in individualistic culture like USA, UK, where they are having a straight communication. And then we also have elaborate or exact or succinct style. So in the elaborate style, the speaker talks a lot and repeats many times. In the exact style, the speaker is precise with minimum repetition. And in the succinct style, the speaker uses fewer words with moderate repetitions, and they also uses non-verbal cues. So we can find this elaborative style in Arab culture where they use a lot of metaphors. And then we can also find an exegeting style in several law contexts, which are having weak uncertainty avoidance index like USA and UK. And succinct style can be found in high context culture like Japan. And we also have contextual or personal. So in the contextual style, the focus is on the speaker's title or designation and hierarchical relationships. However, in the personal style, the focus is on the speaker's individual achievements, and there is a minimum reference to the hierarchical relationships. And we also have affective or instrument style. In the affective style, the communication is more relationship oriented, and listeners need to understand meanings based on nonverbal cues. Whereas in the instrumental style, the speaker is more goal oriented, and they uses direct language with minimum nonverbal cues. Now, coming to the important nonverbal cues, we have body contact and interpersonal distance. The way we contact with one another, each and every culture have our own way of doing body contact. Even though there are several cultures who are very much open to embracing, hugging, kissing, thumping on the shoulder, but there are many cultures who doesn't want a body contact in their first meeting, where they prefer to have uh, verbal cues instead of non-verbal cues. And then we also have this interpersonal distance, the distance that can be maintained between two or more individuals when we are communicating. So that will also gives an important communication, because if a person is maintaining a lot of distance, as mentioned here in the slides, so we can see that that person, the relationship that that person wanted to create with us, can be clearly communicated through the way he or she maintained the interpersonal distance. And here are the strategy for cross-cultural management. So the first one is individualism versus its opposite, collectivism. So when we talk about individualism, it is a degree to which individuals are supposed to look after themselves or remain integrated into groups, and usually around the family. The positioning itself between these poles is a very basic problem all societies face. So, a concise definition is individualism stands for a society in which the ties between individuals are loose and everyone is expected to look after him, herself, and her or his immediate family only. And on the other hand, we have collectivism, where collectivism stands for a society in which people from birth onward are integrated into a strong, cohesive in groups, which throughout people's lifetime continue to protect them in exchange for unquestioning loyalty. There are several national differences in individualism, and they can be calculated by using IDV, that is known as Individualism Index. And the highest IDV scores were found in the United States, Australia, and Great Britain. And the lowest IDV scores were found in countries like Guatemala, Ecuador, and Panama. So now moving on to the next one, that is the power distance. This will clearly explains about the distance between you and your boss, the power distance that we have between two persons who are working in an organization. So power distance is the extent to which the less powerful members of an organizations and institutions accept uh, and expect that power is distributed unequally. So the basic problem involved is the degree of human inequality that underlies the functioning of each particular society. So in Hofstede research, power distance is measured in a power distance index, that is PDI. And a high PDA score indicates that a society accepts an unequal, hierarchical distribution of power and that people understand their place in the systems. And a low PDI score means that power is shared and is widely dispersed, and that society members do not accept situations where power is distributed unequally. And here in Hofstede's research, as we have mentioned, power distance is measured by using power distance index. And in a high PDI countries such as Malaysia, team members they are not willing to initiate any actions because they are totally dependent on their supervisor. They like to be guided and directed to complete a task. So if a manager doesn't take charge, they may think that the task is not important. So they has to be leaded and guided and supervised by a leader. So that is an examples of high PDI countries. So the power distance that high PDI and low PDI scores will have a different way of doing and carrying work. So that is very important in a corporate culture. And we also have uncertainty risks avoidance. So, uncertainty risks avoidance refers to the extent to which a culture programs its members to feel either uncomfortable or comfortable in unstructured situations. So, unstructured situations are novel, unknown, surprising, and different from the usual. So the basic problem involved is the degree to which a society tries to control the uncontrollable. The countries for Hofstede study were each given a score on uncertainty avoidance index. So they found that Hofstede research was conducted, and Hofstede has found that uncertainty avoidance index values for 50 countries, and he has conducted a study in 3 regions. And the countries who are having the highest uncertainty avoidance index are like Greece, Portugal, and Guatemala. And the countries with the lowest uncertainty avoidance index are Singapore, Jamaica, and Denmark. So, this uncertainty avoidance index is one of the 5 key qualities or dimensions measured by the researchers to understand why some ideas and business practices work better in some countries than the other. Now, moving on to the next slide, we have masculinity versus femininity. This will clearly explains about the quality and the quantity of life. So, Hofstede has conducted a research in 2010, and he has elaborated on the distribution of emotional roles between the genders, whether people are motivated by wanting to be the best or liking what they do. So, masculinity versus its opposite, femininity. They refers to the distribution of emotional roles between the genders, which is another fundamental problem for any society. So this distinction opposes tough masculine and tender and feminine society. So masculinity is represented by tough, while feminine society is represented by tender. So we can see the different qualities that we find in male and female, and the duality of the sexes is a fundamental fact with which different societies cope in different ways. Surveys on the importance of work goals shows that almost universally women attach more importance to social goals such as relationship, helping others, and the physical environment, while the men's are more attached to ego goals such as careers and money. So masculinity, as we have already explained, that they stands for a society in which gender roles are clearly distinct. Men are supposed to be assertive, they are supposed to be tough, and they focus on material success, while women are supposed to be more modest, tender, and concerned with the quality of life. So femininity will stands for a society in which gender roles overlap. So both men and women are supposed to be modest, tender, and concerned with the quality of life, because the respondents were mostly men, and Hofstede suggested calling this dimension the masculinity index, MAS. So this index has been given out here. So there is a difference between masculinity and femininity. Masculinity is explained by the quantity of life, while femininity is explained by the quality of life. So here, culture values are competitiveness, assertiveness, materialism, ambition, and pro. While in femininity, the cultures place more value on relationship and the quality of life. And under masculinity, more dramatic and less fluid difference between gender roles. And under femininity, men and women have the same values, emphasizing modesty and caring. And then we have several dimensions of culture. There are several dimensions of culture which we are going to highlight here. So the first one is known as Edward Hall and Mildred Hall model, and the second one is governed by Florence Gluckun and Fred Strothbach model, and the third one is Gerd Hofstede model. And as we have already explained about Hofstede, so anyway, we'll try to bring in here as one dimensions of culture that is presented. And the next one is Fons Trompener's model. And the last one is Globe Project, which is known as the Global Leader and Organizational Behavior Effectiveness Project. So let us try to take a look at one by one. So the first one is Edward Hall and Mildred Hall model. So, Edward Hall and Mildred Hall. Edward Hall is an anthropologist, and his wife, Mildred Hall, they work together, and they have studied, and based on their corporate experiences and various qualitative studies that they have conducted, they have come up with 6 dimensions of cultures, which are known as the first one is known as the language of time. So this language of time is they have divided this language of time into two parts, that is known as the monochronic culture, which is also known as the M time, and polychronic culture, which is also known as the P time. So the view of M time is that they view time is very precious, and they view that time is precious as money, so it should not be wasted at all. So they are giving priority to time as compared to people. So people of M time cultures are quite punctual. May it be a meeting or may it be an appointment or any social gathering, they are very punctual because they measure the value of time as money. So they don't want to waste it at all. And on the other hand, the polychronic culture, or the people from the P time, they give more importance to people or human relationship than time by polychronic cultures. So they give more importance to the people. So they give less importance to time. So that will be the opposite of the M time. So they don't want to waste any relationship. So for them, they can, even though some person might not be quite punctual, they don't want to break the bones between two person. So they just let it slide when a person is not keeping his punctuality or some other things also. So the language of time can be quite different for these two different time, I mean two different parts. And then they also bring out the second one is known as the language of space. So this is also given by known by the term proxemics. So the most important person will have the biggest office, but at the same time the use of personal space also differs across cultures. So the way we maintain space is also, the language of space is also one culture. So if you take a look at in your organization, the person who is at the top management will have the is expected to have the biggest space. So the biggest space, and the way he uses personal space also differs. So the language of space. Then we also have the language of things. So when we talk about these things, it usually explains about the position of material things by people of a culture, the position of material things. And then we also have language of friendship. So this will clearly explains about the approach of the people towards making friends, whether the people of a culture make friends easily, and also whether they keep their friendship for long or they are broken easily and frequently. So every culture normally doesn't believe in responding to friendships and relationship with the same degree of emotional intensity. So that is the language of friendship. And they also bring out the language of agreements, where the people of some countries or cultures prefer to have everything in black and white, especially the agreements in particular, whereas some culture carries just the opposite agreement. So the language of agreements, how they wanted to have uh, the agreement, if they wanted to have everything in black and white, especially the agreements in particular, like if they wanted to be having the agreement in a written form with it printed out. And then we also have high context and low context culture. So the Edward Hall and Mildred Hall, they also bring out the importance of high context and low context culture. So the communication in case of high context culture is implicit, and more emphasis is provided on the interpretation of the context rather than on the words. In a high context culture, most of the things are left unsaid, and they left it for the listener or the receiver to understand on its own by interpreting the words according to the context. So on the other hand, in a low context culture, communication is explicit in case of low context, and so they give more importance to the words, and the receivers is supposed to understand the message through the words using the message without giving any heed to the context. So low context and high context culture will have a different way of communication. So these are also one important dimensions of culture which has been given by Edward Hall and Mildred Hall. Now moving on to the next model that is presented by Florence Kluckhohn and Fred Strutbach, uh, they bring out six dimensions of culture based on problems that they feel that all societies are facing these problems. So the first problem is, what does a person think about the basic nature and beliefs about the other person? And the second one is, what does a person think about his rights and responsibilities towards the nature? And the third one is, what is the duty of a person towards others? The fourth one is, what is the key form of activity in a society? And how is space considered in a business organization? What is considered more important by the people, past, present, or future? So these are the six problems that they feel that this is present in each and every culture. Uh, just give me 1 second. Okay, now coming back to our slides, we also have the next model, which is known as the Geert Hofstede model. Um, Hofstede model, which also brings out several uh, six dimensions. So the first one that we find here is the PDI, that is the Power Distance Index. So this dimensions will measure the level to which the less powerful workforce of the organization will recognizes that there is an unequal distribution of power. The PDI that we have already explained in the previous part of the presentation also. So low PDI and high PDI countries will have a different way of dealing with other people. And then we have individualism versus collectivism. So, individualism indicates a loosely knit social network in which people give preference to themselves and their immediate family members. On the contrary, collectivism implies a tightly knit social framework in which people do not believe in taking care of each other in the group in exchange for the loyalty. So we have individualism and collectivism. Individualism culture will clearly wants to give preference to themselves and their immediate family members. They wanted to take care of themselves. On the contrary, in collectivism, they are belonging to a tightly knit social framework. And then we also have masculinity versus femininity, which is represented by the MAS, that is masculinity and femininity. And then the values considered in case of masculinity are achievement, heroism, then assertiveness, and material reward for success. Whereas other values like cooperation, humility, care for the weak are included in the femininity aspects of these dimensions. So the fourth dimension that is brought up by Hofstede model is also known as the uncertainty avoidance index. So that is the UAI. So a low score on, I think we also have already explained about this one. A low score or value on the uncertainty avoidance index represents that the managers and employees of the organization feel at home with regards to uncertain situations. And therefore, they are more entrepreneurial, they are happy to take risks, and they are not very much dependent on formal rules. And cultures where there is a high uncertainty avoidance index, they are not familiar with they don't want to deal with the uncertainty, they are not ready to face uncertainty, so they are preparing well to face any kinds of uncertainty, and they are not willing to take risks. So that is one important features of this uncertainty avoidance index. And the last one is LTO, that is also known as long-term versus short-term orientation, LTO. So people with short-term orientations are normative thinkers, and they show great respect towards traditional values, and they believe in getting quick results. Whereas people with a long-term orientation, they believe that the truth depends to a great extent on situation, context, and time, and they are quite determined towards achieving results. And we also have the last one that is known as indulgence versus restraint. So, a society which permits relatively free gratifications of basic and natural human drives related to enjoying life and having fun represents indulgence. So, on the contrary, restraint stands for a society that suppresses gratifications of needs and controls it by making strict social norms of standards. And moving on to the next model, we have von Strompener's model. So under von Strompener's model, uh, uh, they have conducted a survey with employees of various hierarchical levels in 1980s, and they continue to work for several decades. And they have classified 7 dimensions. So the first one is known as universalism versus particularism. So, in an universalist culture, ideas can be applied anywhere, and there is always a definition that can be used to determine the distinction between right and wrong. And standards and values are important, and they can only be departed from after consultations. But in a particularistic culture, members believe that it is the circumstances that determine how ideas can be applied in practice, and personal relationships and obligations play an important role when making ethical decisions, and status is important. So that is why, for example, like salary is linked to reputation and origin. So this is the one important dimensions of von Strompener's model. And coming to the second one, we have individualism and collectivism. So this will measure the extent to which employees sees themselves perform better as a community or as an individuals. Individualisms, they sees human beings as individuals, whereas collectivism is characterized by humanity as a part. So individualistic culture and collectivistic culture will have the way of doing things. In a collectivism culture, they wanted to do things together, and they are having a communitarian culture. They link to uh, they link to non-Western countries. And we also have neutral versus emotional. So in a neutral culture, emotions are controlled, and whereas in an emotional culture, emotions are expressed openly and spontaneously. For example, like neutral cultures are Japan and Great Britain. uh, uh, and then we have like in an emotional cultures, for example, like uh, getting angry in public, laughing loudly, or displaying any kinds of emotional outbursts that can be observed in an emotional cultures. For example, like countries like Spain and Mexico, where people talk loudly, they often laugh, they talk loudly and greet each other enthusiastically. So that can be found in the emotional culture. And then we also have specific and diffuse. So this indicates the degree to which responsibility is specifically assigned or the same is accepted in a diffuse form. So they also have a small private space which they share with good friends and close associates. And people often approach each other informally in both the public and private space. In a diffuse culture, the public space and the private space tend to be interwoven, and people protect their private space because they will provide easy access to the public space. So people from a diffuse culture attach great value to formality, while people from specific culture, they don't attach much to formality. And we also have achievement versus ascription. So this represents the extent to which people need to prove themselves to get status. In an achievement oriented culture, a person's worth is determined on the basis of their performances and how well they perform their tasks. And And in a culture, in status is based on who the person in the question is. Their position is derived from, for example, like their origin, their gender, age, career of a person. So that is achievements and ascription. And we also have sequential and synchronous. So people believe in doing things one at a time or a number of them at a time, as we already mentioned. In a sequential, people wanted to do things one at a time, but in a synchronous time, people would like to do multiple tasks in one time. So they are more abstract, and they focus on being able to work on various projects at once. And we also have inner directed or outer directed. Um, this represents the approach of the people, whether they are able to control the environment or they work with it in an inner directed. The focus is on how people experience their environment, whether they view the environment as a threat or is it sensible to move with the factors that are caused by society. So in many non-Western culture, it's more about living in harmony with the environment, and there are forces that cannot be controlled or influenced, and therefore we have to adapt to external circumstances. Now, coming to the next one, we have GLOBE, that is also known as the Global Leader and Organizational Behavior Effectiveness Project. So, it was an international project conducted by R.J. House in 1991 with the help of 170 researchers from 62 countries. They measured 9 dimensions of cultures, which are listed below. We have performance orientation, uncertainty avoidance, institutional collectivism, in group collectivism, gender egalitarianism, future orientations, power distance, and assertiveness. So these are the different dimensions, 9 dimensions, which has been given out by the Global Leader in Organizational Behavior Effectiveness Project. So when we talk about the first dimensions given out by them, performance orientation, this will represent the extent to which the society motivates and rewards the members of the group in case of improvements in the performance. And number two is about uncertainty avoidance. As we have mentioned, this will clearly reflect the degree to which the society, business, or groups they tries to decrease the uncertainty with regards to future events. And the third one is human orientation. This will measures the extent to which the individuals are rewarded by the society for being generous, fair, caring, selfless, and kind to others. And we have institutional collectivism. This will represent the extent to which the member express pride, loyalty in their organizations or families. And the next one is in-group collectivism. So this represents the extent to which the members express pride, loyalty in their organizations or families. And we also have gender egalitarianism, which reflects on the gender inequality, whether the inequality is minimized by the community or not. And the seventh dimension is future orientation, which represents the degree to which the employees of the organization engage themselves in future oriented behaviors such as delaying indulgence, planning and investing in the future. And we also have the eighth dimension, that is power distance. This will clearly extend to which equal distributions of power expected by the members of the society. So even though we are bringing out different models, but we can see that several dimensions are similar to one another. They are just giving a different names for each and every dimensions. But anyway, we will try to bring them out. And then the ninth, the last dimensions under Globe project is assertiveness. So this will represent the extent to which the employees exhibit self-confidence and aggressiveness in their relationships with others. Now coming to the next important topics, which is known as the concept of diversity. So this concept of diversity includes two things, that is acceptance and respect. And it means understanding that each individual is unique, and recognizing those individual differences. This is given by Patrick and Kumar. These differences can be in regard to the dimensions such as race, age, status, socioeconomic status, physical abilities, religious beliefs. Thus, there is a need to explore these differences in a safe, positive, and nurturing environment. So, here are the features of diversity, which includes multidimensionals, inclusion, and the pros and cons. So, we can understand that today's the workforce is more diverse in terms of gender, race, ethnicity, national origin, and it comprises of different peoples who are having different attitudes, needs, desires, values, and behaviors. So for an organization to be successful, managers not only need to understand the cultural background, but they also need to understand the degree of diversity that they carry with them. So thus the managers in organizations, they need to understand, they need to predict and manage this intriguing nature of the diverse workforce. So it's very important. It's in important areas where we need a careful understanding. And as we have mentioned, there are three features of diversity. So we can see that diversity is multidimensional because it includes visible and invisible dimensions of human beings. And it also involves inclusion because diversity not only includes differences but also similarities among people. So that's what we have to remember. And diversity has a pros and cons. If it is handled properly, it can prove to be a competitive advantage for an organizations. But if it is mismanaged, then it may result in distractions of the organization as well. So these are the important features of diversity that we need to understand. Now let's take a look at the dimensions of diversity. There are the dimensions of diversity are broadly classified into primary and secondary dimensions. So the primary dimensions of diversity are like class, gender, age, race, ethnicity, income, spiritual beliefs, sexuality, physical abilities, and characteristics. Because they have been displayed in the innermost circle, we are able to show this diversity only with our innermost circle. And the secondary dimensions have been shown in the outer circle, which includes 11 variables like work experience, communication style, cognitive style, political beliefs, education, geographic location, organizational role and level, military experience, work style, first language, and family status. So these secondary dimensions have we are able to explain them, we are able to show them only with the outer circle where we are very much comfortable, even though other people to whom we are not familiar also knows about this. But the primary dimensions we share only with the innermost circle to whom we are comfortable. And we also have the cultural diversity. So, cultural diversity is basically the workforce diversity, and this includes all those visible and non visible factors that cause differences among people. That is gender, religion, physical disability, family status, age, race, hierarchical status, language, education, profession, and lifestyle. So, all these things are brought out by the cultural diversity, which are very much important and which needs to be properly handled and managed by the managers and the top management. And here are the challenges of cultural diversity in Indian organizations. And the first challenges that I would like to bring out is that we have a problem of communication. This is one of the most important challenges that we faced in Indian organizations because we have different ways of communication and we use different language. Even in India, even many Indians, we have a different ways of communication, different languages, and These can lead to ineffective communication when we are not properly understanding what another employee is trying to say to us. So this can have resulted in ineffective communication, and it can also result in lack of teamwork. It can make the diversity programs very difficult to success. So in order to manage this diversity, communication problem must be one of the most important challenges that needs to be solved. And number two is resistance to change. Most of the time, employees they resist change because we all have resisted change because it is human nature, and it takes time to understand and comply with the change. So the mentality of I used to do it this way has to be removed from the minds of employees. Only then they will be able to welcome the change. The way I do, the mentality of I used to do it this way have to be removed. So resistance to change is one important challenges, and implementations of diversity in the workplace. So the organization needs to implement the diversity policies at any cost, and employees may not like or agree to the same, but this is why it is termed as challenge. And implementations of diversity in the workplace policies. So this can be the dominant challenge for all the diversity promoter or advocates. They're simply making it mandatory for the employees to undergo the diversity training does not work well. Rather, the diversity needs to be internalized. It has to be made part and parcel of every policy, every process of the organization. Implementation is a stages where problem arises. It's very difficult to implement the diversity in the workplace policies. And then we have benefits of why do we need to study the benefits of cultural diversity. So it's very important to study the benefits of cultural diversity because it's very important to manage because it can gives up several advantages from a culturally diverse workforce. The first one is we can provide better customer service because a diverse employee base can understand they can understand and communicate with different types of customers and thus better serve their needs. This is true. We can provide better customer service when we have a diverse workforce because the customers is also diverse. And we also will be having better solution. So when a team is comprised of diverse members, this will benefit the organization from more information, richer ideas and viewpoints, and a greater number of approaches to solve problems as compared to a team composed of the same type of members. So we can say that diversity can be a knowledge source for problem solving. This is very important. And we can also have more tolerance of different ideas. So a diverse employee base contains a broad variety of ideas reflecting different views and values. So, to fully utilize this varied perspective, the organization must adopt a tolerant attitude towards employees holding different ideas. And the next one is the next benefits of cultural diversity is we can have more flexibility. So the organization must be able to respond quickly to meet rapidly changing in customer desire, competitive actions. So we can have more flexibility if we can have more diverse workforce. And number fifth is valuing fairness and respect for individual contributions. So, in order to capitalize on the advantages of increased information or wider, richer perspective, the organization needs to create an environment where the individual feels that they operate in a fair environment that values their inputs, and it will also create a more innovativeness for an organization because the organizations having diverse workforce will benefit as people from different backgrounds have different ways of looking at the same problem, and thus they are more likely to come up with more creative and innovative ideas to solve problems and make decisions. And the last point that we have is it will also enhances the firm's image because organizations are concerning about their public image. what the public thinks of them, and the kinds of feelings which come to their mind when their names are mentioned. So, a favorable, positive public image helps the organization to attract investors, customers, and employees. And we have multicultural organizations. So, a multicultural organization has been described by Jackson et al. 1992 as one that exhibits the contributions made by the diverse cultural groups in its missions, operations, and products or services. And number B, which does not simply believe in lip service rather than believe in action to eradicate social coercion in all forms within the organization. And number C, give equal chance to the diverse employees to participate, especially in decisions that shape the organizations. And number D, takes a follow up to eliminate all forms of social denominations. And here are the stages and levels for becoming a multicultural organization. There is level one in stage one, level two in stage two, level two in stage three, level two in stage four, level three in stage five, level three in stage six. We can understand that there are three levels, and each and every level have two stages. So the first stage, level one, stage one, is known as the exclusionary organization. So this organization maintains the power of dominant groups in the organization and excludes the other. And we have level one, stage two, the club. This club still excludes people, but in a less precise way. They exclude lesser than the exclusionary organization. Some minority group members are allowed to remain in the group till the time they conform to predefined norms. And we have level two in stage three. This is known as the compliance organization. So this organization recognizes that there are other perceptions as well, but does not believe in causing any sort of trouble. They actively recruits minority groups at the bottom of the organization and makes some token appointments. And there is level two in stage four, which is also known as the affirmative action organization. So this organization is determined to eliminate, discriminate, and encourages employees to examine their attitudes and think differently. And we have level three in stage five, the redefining organization. This develops and implements the policies to encourage distribution of power among all the groups in the organization. And we have level three in stage six, so the multicultural organization. This is the organization reflects the contribution and interests of its entire diverse workforce in everything it does and supports. All the members willingly and actively participate in the organization, which leaves a positive impact on the external stakeholders. And here are the approaches to diversity management. We have discrimination and fairness approach, access to access and legitimacy approach, and we have learning and effectiveness approach. So the first one, discrimination and fairness approach. This approach focuses on making proactive programs for ensuring equal opportunity, fair treatment, recruitment, and observance of equal employment opportunity conditions for everyone. So the companies who are following this approach normally introduce mentoring and career development programs explicitly for the women and people of minority caste. And they also train other employees as well to respect the cultural differences. And number two, we have access and legitimacy approach. So this approach focuses on the acceptance and utilizations of the differences among employees to cater the diverse customer groups. And organizations applying this approach, they believe that the marketplace is culturally diverse and hence can present an opportunity or threat for them. So the organization work on improving the diversity of its workforce as they understand the need of having the employees who possess multicultural skill, multi skills. They also learn that more than one language so that the customers can be understood and served in a better way and thus gain legitimacy with them. So that is the second approach. And the third approach is known as learning and effectiveness approach. So this learning and effectiveness approach, they aims at integrating employees by recognizing that cultural differences are important source of organizational learning. and the differences that they observe are valued and they are made a part of the core business process. And the organization who follows this approach believes in an open discussion, and they also ensures respect for differences, and they also aims at developing positive diversity climate, and they also want to promote a culture of integration. So the organization internalizes differences among employees by putting itself in the shoes of the employees to understand their different perspective, and this they find the way of increasing the effectiveness. And here are the process of cultural diversity management. We have several steps, that is diagnosis, aim settings, awareness raising, policy development, managing the transition, to sustain momentum, to assess achievements in terms of business benefits. So this process of cultural diversity management has been given by Rose and Snyder in 1992. And these steps, the first step is known as diagnosis, where every organization needs to identify the current situation in terms of policy, statistics, and culture by looking both at the issues and the causes. And number two is known as aim settings, where they normally include the important concepts such as business case for avoiding discrimination and identifying the vital role of commitment from the top management of the organization and a vision of what the organization would look like after successful diversity management. They are setting the aim, what they wanted to become after a successful diversity management. And number three is about awareness raising. So this is a very important stage in which awareness needs to be raised, and awareness about the diversity and its importance have to be raised among the employees at all the levels, and especially the managers. Number four is policy development. So the new systems are implemented through the involvement of the policies, and this should not be imposed. And the next step in the process is managing the transition. So, in order to manage there has to be a variety of training initiatives, like they have to design several programs which are especially designed for minority groups to make them understand the culture of the organization and acquire essential skills, and several specific diversity management policies and programs needs to be developed, which particularly focus on selection, appraisal, and coaching training session for further awareness and to identify cultural diversity and to manage different cultures. And the next point is to sustain momentum. Here, this requires involvement of senior management, not necessarily from HR department, but anyone who continues the process together with the trade union. And the last steps in the process of diversity management is to assess achievements in terms of business benefits. So the last step is this to manage the success or achievements of diversity management policies in terms of business benefits, such as improve relation with the customers, improvement in the productivity and profitability, and so on. Now, here are the strategies for managing cultural diversity. The first strategy for managing cultural diversity is number one is ignore cultural differences. So the managers following this approach in the organization does not recognize cultural differences and its impact on the organization. They ignore the cultural differences, and this strategy is mainly adopted by parochial type of organizations where managers and employees believe that our way is the only way to manage and organize. And in their view, diversity is just an irrelevant concept. They are not agreeing to diversity. They are not welcoming diversity at all. So that is the ignore cultural differences strategy. And the second strategy is known as the minimize cultural differences. So this strategy is mainly adopted by ethnocentric organizations. Here, the managers do recognize the cultural diversity, but they recognize them only as a source of problems. So they feel that our way is the best way to organize and manage. They think others' way of doing as inferior's way of managing. They feel that other ways of doing things is inferior to how they are managing. They don't consider the benefits of diversity. So they wanted to minimize the cultural differences. They are trying to create a homogeneous workforce. So they wanted to minimize the scope of having cultural diverse workforce in an organization. And the last strategy is manage cultural differences. Um, in an organization, they use the strategy of managing differences as these organizations are known as synergetic organizations, and they recognize or acknowledge the effects of cultural diversity that results in both advantages and disadvantages. And managers following this approach, they believe that our way and their way of managing and behavior differs, but neither is superior to others. So they also accept our way of doing things and their way of doing things. So they are saying that neither is superior to one another. So they are trying to manage the cultural differences. So this is the third strategy of managing cultural diversity. Now, coming to the importance of cross-culture negotiations. So, negotiation is an important process involving two or more people or either equal or unequal power meeting to discuss shared and opposed interests in relation to a particular area of mutual concern. So, negotiation is a process where interested parties resolve their disputes. They agree upon course of action and they bargain for individual or collective advantage, and they have an attempt to craft outcomes which will serve both their mutual interests. And negotiation has three dimensions. It says that negotiation is an educational process, negotiation is a problem solving process, negotiation is an interdependent process. So, when we talk about negotiation is an educational process, it enlightens the other side about your team's concern, their perceptions and aspirations. It's all about learning what is the team concerns, what is their perceptions, and what are their aspirations. So we need to have a proper education. We need to have a proper information on these areas. And the second one is negotiation is a problem solving process because both the parties who are involving have different perspective, but they are trying to reconcile. If there is to be progress, they have to agree on their differences, they have to solve their differences and agree on one mutual things. So we can say that negotiation is a problem solving process. And the third, negotiation is an interdependent process because the workable and sustainable progress depends on building cooperative relationship with the other side. So it is not just one side, with the other side in general. Negotiating a workable balance among competing interests requires a combination of direct and indirect diplomacy. So negotiation is a interdependent process which requires mutual relationship and building a long-term relationship with the other parties. Now, moving into cultural implications for managers and negotiators. For the efficient and effective international business negotiation, few steps are important, which includes selection of the appropriate negotiation team and management of preliminaries, including training, preparation, and manipulation of negotiation wettings, management of the process of negotiation, that is what happens at the negotiation table, and appropriate follow-up procedures and practices. So, this is very important because when an international negotiation has to take place, we need to have a proper negotiation team who are having expertise who have skillful knowledge and who are known as international negotiators, who can speak the foreign language, And for example, like there are many immigrants to the foreign countries who have been immersed in foreign cultures in other capacities. Um, and in studies conducted at Ford Motor Company and AT&T, three additional traits were found to be important predictors of negotiation success with international clients and partners. For example, like willingness to use team assistance, listening skills, and influence at headquarters. These are very important. So when we are selecting a team, they are expected to have this kind of traits which are very important, that can lead to the success of their negotiation at the negotiation table. And here are the following checklists that is recommended to ensure proper preparation and planning for international negotiations: assessment of the situation and the people, and assessment of the situation and the people, the situation in which the negotiation takes place, and the people who are sitting on the opposite side of the negotiation table. That is very much important. What is their expertise? What kinds of negotiation style that they used? All these things are important. And the negotiator must have the preparedness in terms of facts to confirm during the negotiation. He has to have preparedness by creating informations, collecting informations and facts, which are very much important to be presented at the negotiation table. And the agenda that needs to be brought out at the negotiation table, and a best alternative to negotiation agreement, but now, which is very much important. This is when they are not agreeing to the solution or the first things that has been proposed. There has to be a BATNA, that is the alternative to the negotiated agreements. This is very important. And we have concession strategies and several team assignments. These are very much important. We have to make sure that when we talk about BATNA, a BATNA must represent the most attractive options available if the negotiations fails. For example, if the agenda that we brought out has not been agreeable in the negotiation table, we need to have the most attractive option to provide at the negotiation table. And negotiators can also improve their position by exploring multiple butnas. It's not only about bringing one butna, but multiple butnas, and general negotiations are often a better and quicker strategy. And there are at least seven aspects of the negotiation setting that should be manipulated ahead of time, if possible. That is location, the location of the negotiation. Where will the negotiation take place? The location. And what is the physical arrangement? Where do they arrange the seat? How are you supposed to sit with in the negotiation table? Are you sitting with your parties, or who are going to sit in the opposite parties? And what is the seat arrangements? And number of parties who are going to be involved in the negotiation table. Are you going to deal with only one parties or two or more parties? And number of participants, how many people are going to sit there on the other side of the negotiation table, party wise also, like one party can have different participants, number of participants. So it's important to have the preparedness before sitting in the negotiation table. We have to know at least, in the before the negotiation takes place, we have to know how many people are going to sit there, what are the numbers of participants, how many numbers of participants are going to come and sit at the negotiation table, and who will be the audiences. Are the media going to be involved, the competitors or fellow vendors? Are there going to be any audiences in their negotiation? This also needs to be highlighted. And communication channels, what types of communication will be used in the negotiation? Is it going to be an online or offline negotiation? And different kinds of communication channels that will be employed. And the time limits, how much time will be allocated for negotiating with one another? This is very much important. Um, how much time you have, this will also gives you, depending upon the time that you have, you can explore many multiple buttons. Or if you have limited time, there might not be at time to propose multiple partners as well. So the time limits is very important. So based on the time that you have, we have to have proper management. And here we have the negotiation process, which consists of 5 different steps. The first one is the preparation. Number two is about relationship building. Number three is about exchange of talks related information. Number four is about persuasion. Number five is about concessions and agreements. So when we talk about preparation, the negotiator must have preparedness. They have to have understanding of cultural differences in negotiation styles. They must understand their own style first and then determine how they are differing from the norm in other countries. So they can do the preparation by comparing profiles of those perceived to be successful negotiators in different countries. So this is one way of preparing for the negotiation. And number two is about relationship building. So, relationship building is the process of getting to know one's contacts in host country and building mutual trust before embarking on business discussions and transactions. So, this process is regarded with much more significance in most part of the world than in the United States. So, relationship building, for example, like US negotiators, they are generally speaking objectives about the specific matter at hand. They usually want to waste no time in getting down to business and making progress. But there are other people like Middle Easterners. They prefer to negotiate through a trusted intermediary, and for them as well, initial meetings are only for the purpose of getting acquainted. They don't want to get down to business in the initial meetings. They use that only to get through to know one another. So the way how we wanted to build relationship can also differ depending upon the different culture. And number three is about exchanging task related information. So we have exchanging task related information. Each side typically makes a presentation and they state its position. A question and answer session usually ensures and alternatives are discussed. For example, in India, like parties will do brief discussions about their position and expectations. From an American perspective, this represents a straightforward, objective, efficient, and understandable stage. And the fourth step we have is persuasion. In the persuasion stage, both the parties they try to persuade the other to accept more of their position and to give up some of their own. Then often some persuasion has already taken place beforehand in social settings and through mutual contacts. And for example, like in a comparative study of the nonverbal negotiation between negotiation behaviors of Japanese, Americans, and Brazilians, they assessed that the relative frequency of the use of silent periods, conversational overlaps, then facial gazing, that is about staring at other people's face and touching. These are the nonverbal negotiating behaviors of negotiators from these countries. And we have concessions and agreements. So in the last stage of negotiations, concessions and agreement tactics, they vary greatly across the cultures. Well-prepared negotiators are aware of various concession strategies and have decided ahead of time what their own concession strategy will be. And the process of reaching an agreement involves careful timing of the disclosure information and of concessions. And most people who have led negotiations believe that negotiators should disclose only information that is necessary at a given point, and they should try to obtain information piece by piece to gradually get the whole picture without giving away their goals or concession strategy. And in the last, even though I have prepared many slides, but I think we can end it here with the characteristics of negotiation. So when there is a conflict of interest between two or more parties, what one wants is not necessarily what the other wants. So either there is no established set of rules for resolving a conflict, or the other parties prefer to work outside of an established set of rules to develop their own solution. So the parties prefer to search for an agreement rather than to fight openly, to have one side capitulate, to break off contact permanently, or to take their dispute to a higher authority. And we have cultural differences that affects negotiation, such as negotiation objectives, where cultural differences will have an effects on negotiation because each and every cultures will have a different negotiation objectives, and the way we deal with relationships, how important is the relationship, and how the decision has been made, and what are the negotiation techniques which are affecting the cultural differences. As we can express it here, there are several negotiation techniques like deception, false demands, and false concessions, then extreme openings, then aggression and use of strong emotions, and the use of silence during the communication. And we can have best offer pressure and then time pressure, which are all used as an important negotiation techniques that is used to negotiate it with another parties in the negotiation table. So I think we can end it here. Even though, as I have mentioned, I have prepared many slides, but our time has been allotted for till 4:30. So now 4:30, I think I can stop it here. Sarmoya,
Yes, ma'am.
yes. Okay.
Yeah, good. So, ma'am, I think it's time to wind up because it's 4:30, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Miss Caroline, for taking our class and discussing a very contemporary topic, which everyone should give importance for that. So, thank you so much for your enlightening session, and I hope
Thank
that
you, sir.
we
Yes.
benefit from your class. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you to everyone who present today.
Okay, thank you. So, dear participant, we will end the session for today. We will meet again tomorrow. Okay. Have a nice evening, everyone. Bye bye.